Hi there, this is Dr. Tanner Melnick from Movement, Rehab, and Performance, and today I'm going to be talking about shoe selection. So oftentimes I get questions about, what shoes should I buy in terms of running, what's going to work for me with injuries, things like that. And to be honest, the kind of choice can be very confusing and complex. And I know from my own kind of personal situation, it's taken me many years to figure out what works for me and what doesn't. So today I'm just going to talk about some different characteristics of shoes and what you can maybe look for to help make your selection a little bit easier. So the first thing we want to understand about shoes is that, especially in today's market, there's a lot of different options out there as far as characteristics that the shoes may have. And so, depending on what you're looking for, you should be able to find something that's going to work for you. Now, there's no great one, piece of advice I can give you as far as, this is going to work for you. If you feel this, you should go for something like this. Oftentimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out what's going to work for your foot and your body. So the best piece of advice I can give you is to try many different types of shoes that look different, that have different characteristics in them, so you can figure out what works for you. And then also make sure that, if you're going to a running store or you're buying online, you need to make sure that there's a good return policy so that if you do try the shoe and you feel like in the moment it feels good, but then once you go on a run or two and you understand that maybe it doesn't work for you, that you're able to return it and try something else. Okay, so what I have today, I have picked a few different shoes that I personally run in that have varying characteristics that I just want to point out, so you can go in with some knowledge to understand some of these different characteristics that different shoes have. So the first shoe that I have here, this is a shoe that I run in. It would kind of be classified as a daily trainer for me. So this is a shoe that I run in, no workouts necessarily, but just kind of like normal everyday miles. Now this shoe has decent flexibility, so the shoe can bend. It has a little bit of rigidity because it does have a plate in it, but it's not a carbon plate. It's a pretty soft plate. So it has some flexibility, and it has what I would consider to be like a medium to high kind of stack height. So the stack height is just simply how much foam is underneath the shoe. Okay, so I like this shoe because it's lightweight, and generally it works for my foot, especially when you're just running everyday kind of average mileage. This is going to be the most important shoe that you run in. This can be that daily trainer shoe. So the next shoe that I have is something that's a little bit more kind of specialized. So this shoe is not as tall, so the stack height is less, and it's also way more rigid, so it doesn't really bend, or it takes a lot of force to kind of get it to bend. And then the other thing you may notice is there's not a lot of like cushioning or padding. Like in the heel, there's not a lot of cushioning. In the tongue area, it's just super thin. So this shoe is designed for speed work. I specifically use this on a track setting. So when I'm trying to do some of my fastest kind of different workouts, this is going to be a shoe that I turn to. And generally, I would describe this shoe as having more ground feel. So you can feel the ground more in this shoe compared to, say, the previous shoe or the next shoe that I'm going to reference here. And then this last shoe, so this is the shoe that I would use for racing, so long distance efforts at higher intensities. So this shoe, you can kind of see, has a very large stack height, so there's a lot of foam underfoot. This shoe also has some stiffening agents, some carbon elements. So like the last one, it's really stiff, but this one is even stiffer still. And it's just not flexible at all, but similar to the last one, it's very thin, so it's not going to offer you a lot of comfort necessarily. So again, this wouldn't be a shoe that you'd want to necessarily go to run every day. This is more of a specialized shoe that you're going to use for specific workouts, or in my case, like a marathon effort, kind of longer distance run. Okay, so with all these shoes, you can kind of pick out different elements. Like I said, the stiffness is definitely one, the rigidity. The foam material varies across the board. So every brand's going to have different foams that are going to be designed to achieve certain kind of characteristics when it comes to running. So finding the right foam that's going to work for you, the right stack height, and the right stiffness are some elements that you can look for to identify what's going to be the best for you. One thing I can say, regardless of what type of shoe you have, is it's a good idea, especially as you get into running more and you're running more miles, more distance, to have a shoe rotation. So I've just selected 3 shoes that I have in my rotation, but I actually generally run in about 6 different pairs of shoes depending on the type of run and just generally how my body's feeling on that given day. So you don't necessarily need to have 6 shoes to run in. Even just having 2 shoes is a really good place to start. And the reason for that is it's great to have a shoe that's for a specific workout, but really it's even more important just to have different shoes that you're running in general, even if you're not necessarily doing a certain workout in a specific shoe, because different shoes are going to distribute forces differently throughout the foot and the body. And that can be a great way to reduce your injury risk by just slightly distributing those forces differently. So different muscles and joints are being loaded in different ways that will hopefully help reduce your injury risk. So that's a really good kind of tip that I would have. So combine maybe considering having a shoe rotation with going to the, your local shoe store or buying online and making sure that there's a good return policy so that you can run in the shoes before, get an idea if they're going to work for you. And then once you find a shoe that you generally like, it's good to have an idea of like, this shoe works for me. I want to either buy the same shoe in the future or find shoes that feel similar to this. But the one thing you have to understand as well is that shoes change. So even if I'm running in a specific shoe model, year over year, that shoe's not going to exactly feel the same. So it's a good idea to have an idea of what works for you, but don't be married to a specific shoe. It's a good idea to have some flexibility and also understand that your body's going to change as well year over year. So you might not be inclined to have a preference for the specific shoe year over year as well. Okay, so hopefully you found this to be helpful and informative, and be sure to check out our website for other information on shoe selection and race training.